Welcome to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Shakras, and in today's video I wanted to make a video about sampling because this is a topic a lot of my followers have wanted me to talk about. I've gotten a few requests to talk about the topic of sampling and what it is and why it's cool, and I also figured I'd briefly throw in an explanation of what modeling is as well, because sampling and modeling are two technologies that many digital pianos will use to produce their sounds. Sampling is when each note of a digital piano is meticulously recorded from the sound of a real acoustic piano. So the engineers will go through and meticulously record each note of an acoustic piano and then basically assign that to each key of the piano. And there will be multiple different dynamic levels based on how hard you hit the key. It's very, very complex and it's very detail-oriented work because you have to record each key multiple times just to get a sample for a single sound. So recording and sampling an acoustic piano is no easy feat, and that's why it's possible for it to go wrong, as I will explain in today's video. Modeling, however, is completely different, and it's actually where advanced software is used to completely synthesize the sound of whatever instrument is being emulated. Roland uses this a lot in many of their instruments. They will model the sound. I believe the RD2000 in particular uses a lot of modeling software for their pianos and electric pianos and a lot of things. And for being a completely digital sound, it actually comes pretty close, but you definitely can tell that it is digital. One advantage to modeling over sampling is that you have a bit more control over what you can do with the sound. With the RD2000, you can actually go in and individually change the voicing of each individual note and do all sorts of very specific things that you can't do with most sampled keyboards. But sampling and modeling are the two main technologies used to give digital pianos their voice. And sampling is used for acoustic pianos. It's used to record electric pianos from the 70s and 60s and all that stuff. You can sample the sound of a Hammond B3 or sample the sound of a harpsichord. You can sample really anything and use it to trigger that sound with a key and do all kinds of cool things with sampling. So why am I making this video? Well, one thing that I hear over and over again, and many of the people who comment on my channel seem to not have heard this at all, is that many people have come out and stated both on my channel and in public, and I've heard people say this to me as well, that a digital piano that has sampled, say, for example, a Yamaha CFX will sound just like a Yamaha CFX, or a digital piano that has sampled a Bösendorfer Imperial will sound just like that Bösendorfer Imperial. And the truth is, it really won't. And I've talked about this before on the channel. I've made videos explaining that a digital piano sounds really nothing like a true acoustic piano, but I figured I'd talk about it again because while this phenomenon is true with just about every digital piano on the market, this instrument here is the worst offender of it. Now, I'm not here to bash digital pianos, to bash stage pianos, or even I kind of am here to say that the Williams piano is bad, but for the vast majority of this video is not to say that staged pianos are bad, digital pianos is bad, sampling is a terrible thing to do. That's not what I'm here to say. I did, though, want to talk about a common phenomenon where people like to say that sampled pianos sound just like their original acoustic counterparts, which simply isn't true. So what we have here is the Williams Legato 3, which is a $250 digital piano that is geared towards the beginner market. For a number of various reasons, this is not the best digital piano to buy for your beginning piano student, but one of the many reasons, in my opinion, is the sound. Now, Williams has on their website some text talking about the sampling of their sound of the Williams Legato 3 and for their other instruments as well. And if you read that text, it sounds very fancy, and you'd think that this instrument would have an incredible sound quality. Let me read to you what they say on their website, and I'll also put up a screenshot of their website because websites can change. They might change what they say 10 years from now. So if you're looking at this now and the Williams website is different, this is what it looks like today. This is what it says. Finding a great piano that can sound good for classical, jazz, rock, and pop music is tricky. After a lot of research, we found the right instrument. A 10-foot, 2-inch Italian grand piano that is used in studios and on tour by world-class musicians you'd know by name. The piano sounded amazing, from soft pianissimo to full forte dynamics, and offered a complete, complex tone that could make any pianist agree. This is an outstanding instrument. We recorded it in an exceptional room with up to 12 microphones to capture every nuance of its sound, from the internal harp to the vibrations coming off of the cabinet. All recorded with high-end microphones and preamps to capture the tone and character of the piano. Well-known examples of grand piano's compositions include every genre and style imaginable. Pianos are mainstays in classical, jazz, pop, rock, R&B, and virtually every other possible style of music. So upon reading that, you would think that the sound coming out of the Williams Legato 3 would be extremely, extremely impressive. They used 12 microphones in an exceptional room to record a 10-foot, 2-inch Italian grand piano. Now, one thing I wanted to talk about is which piano exactly did they sample, because many digital piano companies will say what their instruments are sampling. The Yamaha CP88, the piano sound. There's a few different piano samples in there that are sampled from various Yamaha pianos. I believe the CFX is one of the instruments that the CP88 sampled. The Busendorfer Imperial is another one. I think they also sampled the S700, another Yamaha piano. The Kawai, many of the Kawai keyboards will say that they've sampled the Shigeru Kawai EX or SKEX in many of their instruments, so on and so forth. You get the idea. I believe Casio sampled C. Bechstein. So Williams sampled this 10-foot, 2-inch Italian grand piano. This piano is a Fazioli F308, and there's a number of reasons I know this. First of all, it's basically the only 10-foot, 2-inch Italian grand piano that's on the market. There is the very tiny Italian company called Borgato, but I don't know if they make a specifically 10-foot, 2-inch piano. On top of this, I know it's an F308 because Williams has several pictures on their website. I've got my screenshot here on my phone to look at it and just describe to you exactly. And if you look at these pictures, and I'll put them up on screen here, you can see that this is a Fazioli. First of all, if you look at the inside rim of the piano, you can see the wood burl. I believe, I forget what the name of it is now, but it's this burled wood that they use. And it's very, very iconic for Faziolis. There are other piano companies that will use this similar burled wood, but Fazioli is, in my opinion, the best one to do it. It looks the best on their pianos, and it's an iconic Fazioli look. Also, in the first picture I showed you there of their site, where it has the little preview with the video that says Prelude in C# minor, if you look at the back of the soundboard of the piano, you can also see a small little blur. That is a badge that Fazioli puts on their soundboards. I might have taken a picture of some other Fazioli that has a badge in the same spot. If I find a picture like that, I'll put it up on screen. So you can see that that little blur in Williams' picture there is of a Fazioli's soundboard. There's also a few other pictures on their website too that I'll put up here. They don't save in very high resolution, but in one of them you can actually see on the harp where it says F308, if you zoom in or something, you can kind of see it. It's a low-resolution picture. They've been very careful to definitely not say that it is a Fazioli, but you can tell from the pictures that, in fact, it is a Fazioli. So what does this mean? First of all, how does a Fazioli sound, and how does the Williams piano sound? Well, if you've seen my other video I've done of the Williams, you'll know that it doesn't sound amazing, but let me demonstrate it here for you. I've done a few videos of a real Fazioli F308 that I filmed at a friend's house, so what I will do here is I will play the same pieces that I played on the F308 on the Williams, and then show you the audio that I have from the real F308. To record the Williams, I'm not altering the sound in any way to make it sound horrific. I'm actually recording it in stereo, coming out of the line inputs. I'm not altering it, I'm not adding any effects, compressing it, adding reverb, none of that. It's the raw sound coming out of the Williams, and I'm recording it the best way that I know how. The audio that I recorded at the F308 is the typical way that I record my pianos, and I'm giving both of these as fair of an advantage as I possibly can. So let me play some Bach here. I've got the sheet music here because I haven't played these particular Bach hymns in quite some time. And I'll also play my two test pieces, my treble and bass test piece, which I played on the F308 at my friend's house. So let's hear how it sounds on the Williams and then the Fazioli. So that is the sound of the Williams compared to the sound of the Fazioli F308, and as you can hear, there's really no comparison. Probably the biggest issue with the sound of the Williams, besides the fact that the action is basically impossible to play any amount of dynamics on, is the fact that the sound has this really high-pitched metallic overtone for many of the notes. It's not on every single note, but the vast majority of them have this. If you're listening to this on laptop speakers or phone speakers, it will sound like a normal digital piano. But if you put on some good headphones or use some good speakers, you'll definitely hear what I'm talking about. Needless to say, a real Fazioli F308 more than likely would not have this. Fazioli pianos, they are built meticulously, and every tiny detail about the piano is painstakingly looked at when they're built, and I've never found a Fazioli that I have not loved. So I do not imagine that this is a sound that the Fazioli would have had. Now, if you analyze what they've said here, they do kind of use some interesting wording here. They say that their microphones captured every nuance of the piano sound from the internal harp to the vibrations coming off of the cabinet. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I don't believe that the metal harp inside of a piano really adds that much to the sound of the piano. It's mostly there for support and stability of the strings and the frame of the piano. It doesn't really generate that much sound as far as I know. And the vibrations coming off of the cabinet, that's an interesting use of wording. The rim of a traditional acoustic piano also doesn't really generate that much sound. If we're talking about a Bösendorfer, that's a different story. But for a Fazioli, the rim, again, is mostly for support, and while it will bounce sound around, it doesn't really generate that much sound of its own, as far as I know. So that is kind of an interesting use of wording to say the vibrations coming off of the cabinet. I think the vibrations emanating from the soundboard would have been a better choice of words there, unless they're implying that there was something wrong and there were some buzzes with the piano, in which case it wouldn't be this consistent across the register. So that is kind of an interesting thing, so I don't think that sound's coming from the actual piano. Something a lot of people mentioned on my original Williams review is that this sound is being generated by the shoddy electronics used inside, and that is a very good idea. But as you noticed in that one screenshot, there's the image, and it says underneath, I think it was Rachmaninoff's, Prelude in C-sharp minor by Sergei Rachmaninoff, and there's a little play icon. And if you click on that play button, which may change in the future, but if you click on that, you can hear an audio track of what I imagine is the actual F308 being played. The dynamic response and control of the instrument in the recording is much higher than that of a Williams, and I don't think it's being played on a Williams. I believe it's a recording of the F308 recorded the way they sampled the Williams, and you can hear that same sound in the recordings on Williams' website too. Now, it is possible they used a Williams instrument to play those, but to me it doesn't sound like it. It has a lot more dynamic control, and the piano player actually sounds like they know what they're doing. On a Williams instrument, even if you know what you're doing, it sounds like you don't. You probably heard a lot of mistakes, and especially in the treble test piece and the bass test piece, weird things happened, notes got dropped, things are being played too loud. That's because the action doesn't really give you good dynamic control. So the audio quality on the Williams website of the F308 is abysmal. And I believe that that's just simply something to do with the way they recorded the Fazioli F308. So this kind of is a bit of a wrap-up on the video, but I did want to talk a little bit about sampling and the way digital pianos do not sound like their acoustic piano counterparts. Once again, I'm not knocking digital pianos. I absolutely adore digital pianos. I have more digital pianos in my studio than you probably would imagine. The two that I use the most are the Korg SV1 and the MP11 SE. I love those both, and both of them, well, actually the Korg SV1 doesn't really have that great of a piano sample, but the MP11 definitely does. However, when you put those instruments in a mix, I did a song a couple years ago that I haven't even released yet to the public, but I used the Korg SV1 piano sound in it for the chords, and in the full mix that's got B3 and bass and other instruments, it actually sounds like a real piano. So when you bury it into the mix, you can't hear all the fine details that would rely that it is, in fact, a digital piano. When you bury it in the mix, it actually sounds really good. So that is something I did want to talk about. I'm not here to bash digital pianos. Sampling is awesome. Digital pianos are great. This here is just the worst and most obvious offender of the fact that even a very well-sampled digital piano will not sound quite as good as a real piano. So that is what I wanted to talk about in today's video, and I hope that you guys enjoyed it, and I hope that you found it interesting and fascinating. That's about all I have to say here about the Williams. There's not really much that there is positive about it other than the fact that it's slim and cheap. That's about it. It's not really that great of a practice instrument, although you can play Bach pretty well on it if you attempt to put no feeling into the dynamics at all. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, you might want to go check out my channel, and I've got lots of cool videos of digital pianos, acoustic pianos, and all kinds of other neat musical instruments. I mentioned Hammond B3s and harpsichords. I've got videos of those too, so if any of that sounds cool, you might want to go check out my channel, and if you do that, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.